Hello, welcome back to IT Landy Azure overview. Earlier we covered how the Azure is structured from subscription to AD. Then we moved on to the second part, which is the Azure Resource Manager or ARM template, again, structure of parameters template. For today, we will cover the logging and how that works basically. So what we have application and we have resource, we have the application logs, and we have the resource itself. So within application logs, we have also something called diagnostic logs between the OS and the application. And then that will be, we have activity logs that will be for the VM infrastructure. Yeah. So you can see compute resource only, non-compute like as resource only. Okay. So non-compute like the paths and other stuff like, we go diagnostic logs and we go activity logs. Whereas with the OS, we have diagnostic application logs plus activity logs like App Insight. Let's we dive into this. So when a resource getting spanned, we have diagnostic logs, we have diagnostic settings. On the diagnostic settings, we can say, okay, configure either through PowerShell, REST API, AZ, or the portal. And what we can do, we can export the logs for OMS, Analytics, Event Hubs, and Azure storage. Some of the references for like a tool with diagnostics log, like application gateway, Azure automation, data lake analytics, data lake store, key vault, load balancer, network, security group, NSGs. Okay, so you can see the logs associated with it, and you can have. I will leave the links below so you can examine or explore these options. Same thing apply to other resources within Microsoft. Now, storage, general purpose, which is very common storage. Storage account, option for redundancy are LRS, local redundancy, or GRS across different regions. 500 terabyte max. What options do we have? Blob, queue, table, file. How we can communicate with this? We can it's via API. And what are the Azure services which can consume it directly, like VHD, Azure Site Recovery, Backup, Store Sample. These are the options are available against the storage within Azure. Multi-levels of redundant storage. We have local redundant, LRS, zone redundant, which is region, geo redundant across different region. Yeah, and then you go read only geo redundant. The first one, which is LRS, multiple replication of data within the single region, like UK West or EMEA or East Coast. Zone redundant between two or three facilities within one region. For example, in Netherlands, or let's see, we take an example, North Europe in Ireland. Within Ireland, we have zone, but we have multiple copy. Yeah, not only single. Okay, replica. So first, multiple replica within data center or a single region. Here we have multiple regions, and then we have the geo, which will give us regions 100 miles away from each other. Yeah, so that will give us the DR. With a read access geo, that will give us GRS read only. Okay. So take away from here, it's multi-redundancy. It's really important to understand this because when it comes to design a backup or your storage requirement, then you need to think about this. However, with all this fancy stuff, it comes at a cost. Just make sure you only use what you need, even not just like the type, either HHD or premium cost associated with it. Next, let's have a look at the bigger picture around the storage itself. Okay, how that will basically be. So we have the Azure storage, we have general purpose. Under general purpose, what do I have? I have premium disk, standard disk, I have Azure files, tables, queues, blob, block, and app end. What is useful for what type of storage? So if we speaking about VMs, straight away, best is to get premium, assuming you can afford it for managed or unmanaged. Otherwise, you can go for standard disk with a blob, and this apply to API as well as VMs. Anything to do with the SMB, then you need a file storage, yeah, SMB. And then tables, queues, and blob you will be utilized for API interaction with your application. VM storage minimum configuration, compute host, storage host. You go with the compute, always you get temporary disk, but the OS disk will be storage host. Yeah, this is the minimal to protect against failure. Data on disk is temporary host when a VM is delocated, whereas data on disk persist even when the VM is delocated. So it's really crucial when you come to design, your architecture, like you need to think about the data. If you do not care about, what's on the VM, and they sit outside, then you can go with a temporary disk. But if you do care and you need to back up and you need to maintain what you have, then you need to make sure like the storage account getting attached and a persist mode, especially crucial like if you start deploying microservices, AKS, and so on clustering. Yeah. Next, we have to move to the standard max per storage is 20,000 IOPS. If you are not familiar with this, I recommend to go and read about IOPS and how that works and disk. We can have max 40 disk per storage account, yeah, and you can consider unmanaged only disk. 60 meg, you know, the speed of read write with 500 IOPS, yeah, and the sizes are up to 4 terabyte, okay, for the managed disk. And the last part is the premium. I get data says from 128 to 1 terabyte. P3 is so expensive. IOPS between 500 to 5000 IOPS. Max throughput is from 100 to 200 megabyte per second. Okay, I mean it's really crucial. You need to think about what data you're copying. Again, design, cost, make sure the architecture is taken care of, the read activity and write activities, and how you can consume it. That's all what I had for you for today. Hopefully next we will dive into the VM. So far we covered the logging, ARM, structure. Thank you for watching. Goodbye for now.